Hey guys, so at this point, you should all have a copy of this book. You should all have a copy of Into Thin Air by John Krakauer. So if you don't, you go to the library and pick that up because that is the next book that we will be spending a few weeks talking about. So Into Thin Air, a personal account of the Mount Everest disaster by John Krakauer. Let's talk about this book a little bit and let's explore kind of what we're going to be talking about with this book, what we can expect from this book, and kind of give you a little bit of background information on this story. All right. So, Into Thin Air is, in fact, a piece of nonfiction. So, it is a true story. It's a narrative nonfiction piece. It is not a novel. Novels are different. So, it's narrative nonfiction. And basically, what Into Thin Air is, it's a personal account of journalist John Krakauer's Everest climb in the spring of 1996. He is commissioned by a magazine, outdoor magazine, to go climb Mount Everest, and it is during this expedition that he is um, there I am. It's during this expedition that he is a part of the worst Mount Everest disaster in history. What happens is basically they're climbing up the mountain and they encounter a freak storm high atop the mountain. So they're basically about 20 at altitudes at over 26,000 feet, and they basically encounter a hurricane force winds, obviously freezing cold temperatures and low oxygen levels that high up in the air, low air pressure that high up, and obviously that's it's very dangerous anyway. But imagine surviving a storm that high up. Um, Obviously, people are going to lose their lives, and so it stranded 19 people overnight. Now, John Krakauer first published Into Thin Air as a shorter piece, an outdoor magazine in 1996. But for reasons that will be revealed to you, for reasons that you will find out, he decided to go back and turn his outdoor magazine article into a full book, and that is what we are left with today. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of why that's kind of explains kind of where it came from. And like I said, as the story progresses, you will find out about why he went back and wrote the book. Okay, there's a picture of the climbers right there. This is John Krakauer right here, and these are the people on his climbing team, and a few of them will not did not survive this tragedy. So here are the people in the book. So basically, the book can be simplified by looking at two different groups of people. The first group is Rob Hall's team, and Rob Hall leads a group called he's the head guide of Adventure Consultants Guided Expedition. So basically, he has people have paid him a large amount of money to take him up the mountain, and so he is the head guide. He's accompanied by Andy Harris and Mike Groom, who are assistant guides. And then his big clients are Doug Hansen, Beck Weathers, and John Krakauer. There are other people on this team as well, but those are the big ones that you will hear a lot about. And then we have Scott Fisher's team, and Scott Fisher's team is the Scott Fisher is the head guide of Mountain Madness, and he is taking a guided expedition up Mount Everest, and he has two guides with him as well. He's got Anatoly Bukriev, who is a experienced Russian climber, and Neil Beitelman, who is a experienced American climber, and so those two are his assistant guides. The three people that you will hear a lot about in the novel in the book are Lobsang Sherpa, and we'll talk about the Sherpas later. Sandy Pittman and Charlotte Fox. So those are the big characters that you're going to see a lot of. One confusing part about Into Thin Air is that there are lots of people, and so I tried to narrow it down. When you see these people, you should really pay attention. But there are lots of people in the book. So I wanted to show you that I'll make my screen bigger here for a second. There is a dramatis persona on Roman numeral page 15. And let me show you what that looks like. So if you turn to page 15, Roman numeral 15, excuse me, right here, and you start here. Can you all see that? I can't. There we go. So, yeah, so you look on this page right here. It lists all of the characters for each expedition, all the people that were on each expedition, and where they are from. So the first one it lists is our adventure consultants. Then we'll go to Mountain Madness. So you can see all the people that are involved. And if they ever bring up a character who you don't know who that person is, you can always go look at that list and you should be able to find him. Okay. So let's talk about things to keep in mind when we're just talking about the content of this book. I think one of the most interesting things about this book, and I don't know if this is a question that can easily, excuse me, be answered, but I want to know, why would you ever do this? At what point does ambition become almost a deadly obsession? There's this concept of summit fever that is really kind of interesting part of this book that you'll read about towards the end of the book, that I think pushes people beyond what they're capable of. Um, and I think we're also going to look at this idea of what's the cost of challenging nature. You know, we see time and time again where humans try to conquer nature, and nature a lot of times winds up conquering them. But we're going to look at these ideas of, the raw force, the raw power that nature possesses. John Krakauer is going to personify Mount Everest, so Everest will almost become a character in this book by itself. We're going to talk about the commercialization of Mount Everest, this idea of making money off the mountain. And then we'll talk quite a bit about the personal injury that one could encounter when climbing Everest, such things as frostbite, HAPE and HACE, which are both the result of a lack of oxygen running through your body, hypothermia, severe cold, and then also just this sounds kind of silly, but the risk of falling. I mean, there are characters who do fall thousands of feet um, to their death. So those risks that we encounter. Now, things you want to keep in mind when you're reading nonfiction are that nonfiction is going to function differently than fiction. So you might be used to a lot of fiction, but maybe not as a lot as nonfiction. So I want to make sure you understand that nonfiction has got to be factual. John Krakauer is a journalist. He can't imagine what happened. He has to base his entire story off of fact. So it's important to keep in mind that he's trying to base his entire story off fact and not just imagine details. And you're also going to notice there's going to be less dialogue. So there's not as much talking. There is some talking, but not as much as maybe you're used to in fiction. Okay. We're also going to be looking at some of these things right here, more the technical workings of fiction or of nonfiction. Is Krakauer's making an argument, and we're hopefully by the end of the book going to be able to determine what's the argument he's making and how does he accomplish it. How does he prove his point using rhetoric? Krakauer's purpose of writing, what is the purpose of this book? Does he accomplish his purpose? And how does he do it? Does he do it through ethos, pathos, logos? Does he do it through other rhetorical devices like figurative language, imagery, connotative language, etc.? And we're going to talk about those rhetorical devices a little bit later. But how does he accomplish making his argument and accomplishing the purpose of the book? And last but not least, we have to ask ourselves this really important question, which is John Krakauer a reliable narrator? Is he a reliable storyteller? Does the personal account, does him actually being there make him more or less credible? And I want you to think about this too. He's trying to retell parts of this book um, after several months, and after several months of actually having the experience. It's not like he was necessarily writing the book while he was on the mountain. So he's retelling a lot of events long after they've passed. And imagine, when he gets towards the top of the mountain, some really interesting things start happening to his brain, and we always have to ask ourselves, is he reliable? Um, because you will discover that John Krakauer makes one horrible factual mistake that actually really hurts um, the the family members of one of the victims of this disaster. So we have to ask ourselves, is he the most reliable narrator going forward? Okay. Folks, that is it. That's what I got. So go ahead and get started on this book. There'll be various screencasts and lectures on the other chapters, but make sure you take a look at them. It's a really engaging book. I know at times it can feel a little bit boring and tedious, but hang in there. I think it'll be really worth your time. He sets up a lot of the background information, so when the action really takes place, it is meaningful and it's relevant. So good luck, happy reading, happy climbing, and I'll be talking with you guys real soon. See ya.